Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and this applies to video games. I've stated in prior videos that I'm a fan of video games that are based on other games. It's interesting to see a take on a popular title and point out the similarities along with features that makes the game different than the original or more popular game. In this series, which I call a chip off the old pixel, we will take a look at a well-known video game along with an in-depth look at a game that was released afterwards that was inspired by the previous title. It's worth noting that even popular titles can be based off of other games. First up is the 1982 Williams arcade hit Joust. You're a knight mounted on an ostrich, and the objective is to dismount the other knights riding on ostriches while they try to do the same to you. It can be played as a two-player co-op, but you can compete against each other and be rewarded for it in some waves. Each wave consists of defeating a set number of enemies while navigating through a cave with a variety of platforms that change constantly from wave to wave. The control is simple, but yet takes precision to master. You can move left or right with the joystick, and there's a flat button to move up and down. The enemies come out of generators and will charge at you at various speeds. If you successfully dismount an enemy by colliding into them at a point where you are higher than them, an egg will drop. You can collect it for bonus points. If you don't grab the egg after it drops to the ground, it will hatch after a few seconds and another knight will appear. An ostrich will fly on screen to pick up the knight, and you will have to defeat the enemy again. Aside from the enemy knights, you have to avoid falling into lava and avoid the lava troll, which is a flaming hand that emerges from the lava which grabs you and pulls you in. It's possible to break free from this, but you have to tap the flat button very quickly. At the start of certain waves, you have to deal with pterodactyls, which I call Terries, who will fly towards the player. The Terries can be defeated with a direct hit to their beak when lined up with your sword, but it requires accuracy and it's very difficult to do in some situations. They'll also appear if you spend too much time in one wave. At every fifth wave, you have an egg wave, which is a de facto bonus stage where you collect all the eggs lying on the ground. Eventually, any uncollected eggs will hatch after a few seconds, and they will turn into enemies which must be defeated. Now let's take a look at a great game that follows this style of play, and that is none other than Balloon Fight. This Nintendo classic was released in arcades in 1984 and for the NES in 1986. All footage in this video will come from the NES version, but I will reference the arcade-specific details. Balloon Fight setting takes place over water with the various platform layouts for each phase like you have in Joust. Like Joust, it can be played as a two-player co-op. The controls for Balloon Fight are the same as Joust, though in the NES version you can use a button to flap continuously. Defeating enemies is done in the same fashion as Joust, but instead of dismounting knights riding on ostriches, you have to pop balloons that you and your enemies use to fly. When you pop an enemy's balloon, they will parachute to the ground and you will receive points. When they land, they'll try to inflate their balloon so they can fly again. If you run into the enemy while they're doing this, they will be defeated and you will receive additional points. If you pop their parachute before they land, you will receive a larger bonus. Allowing an enemy to inflate his balloon will require you to defeat him again. Like in Joust, you want to be careful when you're hovering near the water. A giant fish will jump out of the water and try to eat you. You have clouds that appear in each phase that shoot bolts of lightning, which produces a spark that moves around the screen. This occurs if you spend too much time in one phase. The spark functions somewhat like the Terries in Joust, though they don't home in on you like the Terries do, and they cannot be defeated. Sparks will disappear if they go into the water. In the arcade version, if you spend even more time in one phase, an arrow will shoot from the side and aim towards the player. Let's take a look at some of the features that makes Balloon Fight different from Joust. In the arcade version of Balloon Fight, the stages are 2 screens high, thus it scrolls when you fly towards the top. To make use of this feature in a 2-player game, the cabinet uses 2 monitors, that way the action can be tracked separately for each player. Having the screen scroll upwards can make it tricky in that you can get caught by surprise from an enemy above. In the NES version, all of the action is on one screen. In Joust, 1 hit from an enemy will defeat you, while in Balloon Fight it takes 2 hits, with the exception of the sparks and arrows, which will defeat you with 1 hit. Your character has 2 balloons attached to him. When one of your balloons is popped, it becomes more difficult for your character to fly upwards quickly. A pop balloon will be restored at a bonus phase. In some phases, you have propellers which spin on contact and causes your character to be thrown around if you come in contact with it, so it's best to avoid them if possible. Once an enemy is defeated, a bubble will emerge from the water. Grabbing it will give you some bonus points. In Joust, enemies emerge from generators one after another in intervals, but in Balloon Fight, all enemies appear on screen at once at the beginning of a phase, inflating their balloons. This presents an opportunity to defeat them right away for some easy points. Balloon Fight has bonus phases where you have balloons that emerge from pipes that fly upwards. You have to grab as many balloons as you can before they fly away. The balloons will fly more quickly in the later bonus phases. Grabbing all of the balloons will give you a large bonus. The most enjoyable feature in Balloon Fight, which is exclusive to the NES version, is the balloon trip. You have to navigate your way over the water, flying through formations of sparks. Some of these sparks will move to make things difficult. All of this while the screen auto-scrolls from right to left. You have to avoid coming in contact with a spark, falling in the water, or being eaten by the fish. Your score increases progressively throughout the trip. In addition, grabbing balloons and bubbles will award extra points, and the latter will cause the sparks to stop moving and the screen to stop scrolling for a few seconds, which is helpful in getting through some tricky areas or grabbing extra balloons. If you grab 20 balloons in a row without allowing any to get away, you'll receive a large bonus and the point values of the balloons will increase. In Balloon Trip, you have only one life, so it's all about surviving for as long as you can. It's an excellent competitive mode to play when you have friends over. On a road trip to Fun Spot about 3 years ago, I brought my NES with me, and my friends and I were up for most of the night in our hotel room playing the Balloon Trip. Aside from the challenge of the Balloon Trip, it has very catchy theme music which will be stuck in your head for a while after playing it. Now let's take a look at Joust and Balloon Fight side by side. Both Joust and Balloon Fight are outstanding games that are very fun to play, especially with 2 players. Both games require good communication between both players in order to advance far, and it helps for each player to focus on one section of the stage. Joust is more difficult between the two due to the aggressive enemies and pterodactyls, but Balloon Fight has more variety in terms of the stage layouts and obstacles put into place. The Balloon Trip is a big plus in terms of replay value. Balloon Fight is certainly a chip off the old Pixel. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.